many different tech terms, and we always hear about the cloud. The reason why I said that it's pretty foggy in it is because that's all what we hear, but we don't know what it is. It's like you're in the misty morning, you're going through, and it's all foggy. You can't see anything. The reality is actually way easier. Cloud is just a marketing term. That's it. That's just something people came up so it's easier to sell. But it actually is, essentially, it's parallel computing. If you go into Wikipedia's article for parallel computing, you're going to find that the first mention of the term was from 1958. David Slotnick came up with this term. Essentially, what it means is instead of using like your single computer with like single processor, it's divided between multiple different processors, multiple different computers, and that's what the term stands for, parallel computing. As the years went on, you could see that people built supercomputers to figure out our concerns about the biology, or there were even weapon testing programs. I believe DARPA actually invested into one of those supercomputers. So instead of throwing a nuclear bomb, they would just model everything. And since they needed a lot of resources, that's where the parallel computing came into life. And within the last 10 years, the prices kept on dropping, and they dropped to a certain degree where it was advantageous to actually provide it to regular people, not just to some huge organizations and military complexes. No, just regular people started using it. And to easier sell it, people just came up with the word cloud, because then no one's asking what it is, and no one's terrified by it, even though no one knows. And in reality, right now there are three different clouds that are pretty popular. If you go into, again, not Wikipedia, if you go into Wikipedia, or if you go specifically into Red Hat is Linux, and they have a great article on the types of clouds. If you go and look at those articles, it's going to tell you that there are three different types. First one is infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Second is platform as a service, and third is software as a service. Majority of the applications that we use, it's software as a service. Zoom, Google Drive, all that kind of stuff. That's where you get a certain application. It's already all pre-configured, preset for you to use, and you're just using it. Now, infrastructure as a service, that's a whole different scope. You know how you would have different computers in the office? That's infrastructure as a service. That's where all those different computers are virtualized. So essentially, they're emulated, and you can use them. You can connect to the network that's emulated for you. In reality, it's spread across tons of different devices. That's why infrastructure as a service, you don't really hear much about it, but it's parallel in businesses, and that's what we use unknowingly. And in the end, the cloud is just a bunch of different computers spread across different data centers. For example, if you go and look into Google, they're pretty open about their data centers, what's in them, and how do they use them. Of course, it's very secure. There's lots of proprietary information, and it's guarded as a company secret. But you can still see the pictures and some brief articles about what Google actually is. Google is a code that spread about different data centers. Data center is just a bunch of servers lined up to each other and connected to each other. Essentially, it's a giant warehouse. That's all it is. So whenever you are using Google Cloud or Office 365 or some other service, you're just make giving them your data and making sure that they store it in their data center, that uh, it's not going to be lost. And that's all what it is. Now, here's an interesting part, the backups. If you're using, for example, Google Cloud, and you're thinking, okay, or Dropbox, I'm just going to put my files over there and they're going to be safe. Yeah, they are going to be safe. You're not going to lose them because they're somewhere in the data centers far, far away. And those data centers, they make sure that it's all replicated. So if one of those computers or any other tech device dies on you, you can still access your files because there are copies of them. However, when you use the Drive or Dropbox or some other service, if you delete a file from it, it's gone. So the files that actually exist over there, they're backed up, but you don't see those backups. So when you delete your file, your backup is gone. And that is why it's way better to make sure that you're not just storing the files in there, you're actually having some kind of other service and you're storing the copies of those files, the backups. I know it sounds very confusing and not unimportant to store a bunch of files in different locations, but think about it this way. What if those files are work related or it's a PDF scan of a letter that you received at one point, and now there's a court proceeding? Yeah, that's why you would want those files to actually backed up. And that pretty much covers it. Thank you, Toastmaster.